Okay, so let's get started with the 13 most toxic experiences you can have in a relationship that let you know that it is not a good relationship for you. All right, the first one is constant chaos and drama, and bad things just seem to happen. So, maybe you get a DUI or they do. Maybe you fight with your friends. Maybe you get so wasted you decide not to go to work, or you skip responsibilities, you start blowing things off, or you start fighting with your friends. There's just this roller coaster of ups and downs and constant drama. The second one is you bond through partying and hooking up. And so that's all you really do. You tend to go over there, you tend to hook up, you tend to party, and that's really your glue, is partying. There's not a whole lot more going on in the relationship besides that. Now, if you're fine with that, there's no problem, right? But if we're talking about a relationship where you're wanting reciprocity and a healthier dynamic, then if all you're doing is partying and hooking up, and that tends to be the only things you do, that is not a healthy way to engage in a relationship. The third thing that happens often in toxic relationships is that you cannot trust anything they tell you. They will say one thing and do another, and they'll be vague sometimes, but you can't really pinpoint what's going on. They might disappear for hours, you don't know where they are, and they come back and it's super vague, or they just flat out lie to you and tell you that they were somewhere that you know they weren't, or you saw their car somewhere and they say, no, you didn't. So things like that, no trust. The next one is gaslighting. This is where you start to doubt your own beliefs about what's going on. You don't trust yourself. And if you find yourself in a relationship where you think, I wish I could video this relationship or what you just said, or I would like to voice memo our last conversation, because you'll say, well, you said such and such. And they'll say, no, I didn't. I would never say that to you. Like, you're crazy. And you start to think, am I crazy? That is another classic sign. And often we see that with narcissism, but it's another important sign. If their ex is still around and it's super shady or questionable, or it just feels like there's something going on and your gut is telling you that something's not matching up with their ex. People can often be friends with their exes, but it's something else like that, where it's like the ex is still in the picture, or there's still a lot of ex emotional attachment. Another sign is if you find yourself doing and saying things that are really out of your own character. You're like, I don't know why I did that. I don't normally do things like that. It's one thing if a person is bringing out your adventurous side, but if you start to find yourself sort of consistently doing and saying things that just don't seem like who you are, that is a sign of a toxic relationship. Another sign is that they shower you with attention and they tell you how great you are and how beautiful you are and wonderful, and they're so lucky to be with you. And it's like all of this on top of everything is like, oh, you're so amazing. And then they're not consistent. Like the next day you can't find them, or they're flirting with somebody else. So there's no consistency, or it's like this over the top, intense focus on how great you are and how wonderful you are. And it's like way too much. That's a sign. If you find yourself spending money on them to keep them around, like excessive gifts or trips, and they only really show up for those things, that can be a sign that they're sort of just maybe using you, or you're just trying to find ways to keep them, and you don't know that you can do it without being sort of lavish in your gift giving. That's a sign they're not just choosing you, they're choosing what you're giving them. Another really important one is, this is a really classic one for more abusive situations, but if they isolate you, they, over time, they sort of draw you away from friends and family, people that you trust, and they monitor you. Maybe they're stalking you on social media, or they show up places that you didn't think they'd be. And it doesn't necessarily feel creepy like I'm describing it right now in the beginning. People often feel flattered. Oh, you missed me. Oh, you wanted to be with me. But it's this sort of insidious sort of process of getting you away from other people, and you start to feel like this is the only person you have that has your back. There's just this intensity to it. There's an intensity to the isolation and to the monitoring of you. Another one is they can be emotionally unpredictable. So you just never know what you're going to get, right? You have like these high highs and low lows, and they'll blow and then they'll be sweet. And it can be this sort of classic cycle of abuse where there's a sort of alluring and a wooing, and then a tension building, and then a blow. like a blow up, and then a honeymoon phase again. And so when that's happening, they'll often say things like, well, you know, it's your fault that I blew. Like you made me crazy, or you stressed me out, or work's really difficult. And so there's all these excuses and these high highs and low lows. The root of it is they don't own their behavior, and you never know what you're going to get. And it tends to be pretty destructive. They can say really hurtful and abusive things when they're upset at you, and then they'll blame it on, oh, I was drunk, or oh, I didn't mean it, or I didn't even say that. What are you talking about? Stuff like that. If they shame you or insult you, they make indirect comments like, oh, you're getting kind of chubby. Oh, I'm just joking. So they're either using sarcasm and they're being passive aggressive and saying things that you kind of go, that didn't feel very good. Or they tend to make just direct insults to you. That is another sign. And if you're just feeling ashamed of yourself, shame is a feeling of I am bad, I'm not good, I'm not worthy. That's very different from guilt. Guilt is I did something I don't want to do again. So it's just this feeling of making you feel bad about yourself on some level. If they put their hands on you in any way, this might seem obvious, but if they're pushing, grabbing, shoving, pinching, squeezing you, blocking you physically in any regard, male or female, this is not a good sign. And this one can actually lead to much more severe and dangerous outcomes. So it's important to know there's never an excuse for putting your hands on anyone, especially in anger, but in any scenario. The last one is if you start thinking that you are not enough, that you need to be different, that you need to change yourself. And I'm not talking about, I need to work on my issues, I need to go to the gym more, I want to be healthier. It's like this deep down feeling of you're not enough, and you just start changing who you are, and you don't really like who that person is becoming. Or it's very much out of line with who you are at your core. That can be a sign of a dangerous and toxic relationship. Okay, what I really want to also let you know is that these things don't start overnight, right? I mean, they sort of insidiously start. People oftentimes can be very intense pretty quickly, especially in more unhealthy and dangerous relationships. But it happens sort of over time. And all of these are sort of in a pattern, and they're sort of in a cluster. And so any one of these, one time, things happen, we all make mistakes, we lose our temper, we say things we shouldn't. I'm not talking about that, not a one-off kind of a thing. I'm talking about a pattern of consistency of these qualities I've described that are really letting you know that this is not a healthy relationship for you. And potentially it could be a dangerous relationship for you. The last thing I want to say is if you love somebody or it's you, and these patterns are happening, and there's a dangerous quality, whether it's abuse, control, manipulation, intensity. When a person leaves a relationship like that, especially if there's a risk for violence, which oftentimes we don't know, but this cluster of behaviors and characteristics are very common signs that set the stage for what can end up being deadly relationships. You cannot just pack up and leave like that. For some relationships, leaving will be the last thing you ever do. So if you love somebody who is in a dangerous or potentially dangerous relationship, and you recognize these signs, if they're confiding in you, you want to be careful of the advice you give. They need to leave with a safety plan, with support, with sort of a whole, and I'll link down below, a safety idea and plan in mind for how to leave. Because the most dangerous time, especially for women in relationships, is when they end the relationship and they want to leave. So don't let that be you or someone you love. All right, thank you so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was kind of intense and a lot, but it just really strikes me at how often we don't realize how many of these things are happening. And even if you have 2 or 3 of these in your relationship, that may not be such a great thing, because these are all really important dynamics. And so I would encourage you to see a couples therapist, see a therapist, get help, read some books, listen to podcasts. Because it's one thing if you're the perpetrator in this situation, like if I'm describing the person you're dating, but here's the flip side to that. If you're in a relationship like this and you're the victim of this, there's a reason why you've chosen someone like this. And there's a reason why you've been staying. And you definitely want to figure out what that's about so that you don't keep repeating the patterns. So thanks for listening. I hope you will subscribe and hit the bell for more content. And I'm still working on new videos about all kinds of things around mental health topics. But please feel free to introduce yourself in the comments below. Let me know what else you want to know more about, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much for your time. It truly is precious to me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.